They convicted Marcus Delaney of first-degree murder in 1994. Then, 25 years later, an auction house cracked open a storage unit that belonged to the county's own medical examiner. And inside, wrapped in a moving blanket, sat a human skeleton nobody could explain. So why was the woman who swore Marcus Delaney strangled his wife keeping unlabeled human remains in a self-storage facility off Route 9? The official story was clean. Dr. Eleanor Voss, the county's chief medical examiner for 18 years, testified that Renee Delaney died of manual strangulation, with hyoid bone fracture as her key finding. The jury took 90 minutes. Marcus got life without parole. Voss retired in 2011, respected, decorated, her name on a forensic pathology scholarship at the State University. She died in 2019. Nobody thought to look in Unit 214 at Route 9 self-storage until the facility auctioned off abandoned units to recover unpaid fees, and a buyer looking for furniture instead found bones. The skeleton itself was the first crack. It wasn't a teaching model. No serial number, no manufacturer's stamp, no articulation wire from a medical supply catalog. It was real bone, adult, female, missing its hyoid. County investigators who reopened the unit found something worse tucked beneath the ribs, a manila folder labeled Doe, Riverbank, 1991, 3 years before the Delaney case. Inside, autopsy notes in Voss's own handwriting described a strangulation death and a missing hyoid bone logged as retained for comparative study. The bone had never been returned to evidence. It had never been returned to anyone. It had been sitting in a storage unit for nearly 30 years, alongside the rest of a body that should have been buried, identified, or at minimum locked in a county evidence room under a chain of custody log with a signature on every page. Here's the contradiction the trial record can't survive. At Marcus Delaney's trial, Voss testified that hyoid fracture in strangulation cases was rare enough and specific enough that she'd only seen it twice in her career, and Renee Delaney's case was the clearer of the two. She told the jury that under oath in a courtroom with her hand still on the Bible. But the Riverbank Doe file proves she'd handled a second hyoid fracture years earlier, one she kept for herself instead of filing. If she disclosed it, the defense could have cross-examined her on pattern, on baseline, on whether her rare and distinctive finding was really as ironclad as she made it sound. The jury never got that chance. They convicted a man on the word of an expert who was, at minimum, editing her own resume in real time. Why did this never surface for 25 years? Because the evidence room Voss answered to was hers to control. As chief medical examiner, she authorized her own transfer requests. State auditors reviewed intake logs, not outflow. Nobody was checking whether specimens she signed out for comparative study ever came back. Her office had no independent oversight board until 2003, 9 years after the Delaney trial. The county's own compliance report from that year, buried in a filing cabinet and never digitized, flagged inconsistent chain of custody documentation in the pathology department. A single line, no follow-up, no names. It was the kind of sentence written specifically so nobody would have to act on it. Then investigators found the second detail, and coincidence stopped being possible. The Riverbank Doe was never identified in 1991, but dental records cross-referenced in 2021 matched her to a missing persons report filed the same month Voss purchased Unit 214 under her sister's maiden name. Voss hadn't just mishandled evidence. She'd built herself a private, off-book archive of unresolved deaths, cases she could quietly study, compare, and apparently draw conclusions from that she never disclosed to a single defense attorney, in a single courtroom in 18 years on the bench of the county morgue. What does this mean for Marcus Delaney, still in a cell after 30 years? His attorneys have filed for a new evidentiary hearing, arguing the state's star witness concealed material contradicting her own trial testimony, a Brady violation with a body attached. Prosecutors, for their part, argue the Riverbank Doe is unrelated, a tragic footnote, not proof Voss was wrong about the Delaney case specifically. But unrelated is a hard word to use about a woman who kept human remains in a storage unit for 30 years and told a jury under oath that what she'd seen was rare. Nobody has explained why she took the bones home instead of logging them. Nobody has explained who else might be resting in a folder she never filed. And nobody, not the county, not the state board, not her own family, has said what else is still out there, waiting for someone to stop paying the storage bill.